in my work, if anybody looks at the body of my work, they'll see that I'm constantly questioning, this idea of like, how do you know what truth is? What is that truth? And what is your morality? Like, what is it? What are your principles and ethics, and what are you going to stand up for? And can you do that in the face of a lot of people opposing what you think? And so, like, I think Gated and Astray, specifically, my first two books were a lot about that. Smash or Grab, not so much. That was kind of a departure in a different direction. But Flight 171 is very much a study in how people behave under a horrible circumstance, and when you're in a situation that's life and death, how you treat others, and also how you judge others, who've messed up, who have, in this book, there's kids that have committed, they've done bad things. And I guess
Give
I
us
should give you,
the official summary. We're 46 minutes in here. We haven't really talked about the book. Flight 171 available now. What does the student audience need to know?
okay, so Flight 171 is about a girl who has recently lost her twin sister to a hit and run accident, and has no idea who committed the crime, but has been searching for this person. She needs to move on. There's a senior class ski trip coming up, and she is going on the trip for the first time without her sister, traveling with her friends, and trying to start fresh. But when she gets on the plane, there is this older woman on the plane, who is actually an ancient creature in disguise that has possessed this woman and has lived in her body for a long period of time, but now this body is giving out. And in order for the creature to keep living, it has to find a new host body. So once the plane is taken off, this creature puts all of the other passengers asleep except for the kids from this senior class trip, and basically offers them a decision. They have to pick one of their own to sacrifice to become this new body for this creature to possess, or she'll crash the plane and everyone dies. So they have the course of the flight to choose this person that they're going to sacrifice. And as they're trying to choose, the creature uses the in-flight entertainment system to show all of the secret sins of everybody on board. So every person, every kid that's on board has something they're hiding. And so she starts playing footage of each of those sins, and then that will hopefully spur the kids into choosing. So they're really trying to choose who's the most deserving to lose their life to this creature within 4 hours. So that's the premise of the book.
It's very much I got morality built right into it. It's almost like the trolley problem. Do you divert the trolley to save this person, or like?
Yes.
So when you sit down to write the setup of this, does this come to you all already worked out? This is the scenario, or do you start with Devin gets on the plane and let's see what happens? I know you're a bit of a plotter. What do you start with when you approach a story like this?
I'm a compulsive plotter. So this is where Lucian and I always diverge. Like, so for me, it's always scenario first, and then I build characters and do all of that stuff. So this particular book was different from any other book I've written in that when it came about, I had been in a dry spell as a writer. So I remember that, like, my book deal came really fast. And so I had three books quickly in succession. 2013, the first came out. 2014, the second came out. And then I think it was 2016, my third book came out. And I was a very unseasoned writer because I'd only had 2 years of experience. So I really didn't know what I was doing. And I was struggling. So every book that came, it was getting harder for me. And that was reflected, honestly, in my book sales and the way that the books were received. Like, they were good. I don't think that they were bad books, but I just didn't really know what I was doing. And it was really hard for me to write them. So I went through a period from 2016 until 2020, like 20, somewhere in there, where I wrote books and they didn't sell. So I had a really long dry spell. But around the time of like 2020, 2021, I think, Wendy Loja from Delacorte Press with Random House put out a tweet asking for books for this paperback series. It was either romance or horror and thriller, and she wanted proposals. And she was open to those, and she had just like put out this tweet, and everybody was kind of talking about it. And so normally an idea will just come to me somewhere. I'll have this idea, and I'll know it's good because I just have this like need to write it. I'll get really excited about it. But I saw this tweet first, and I was kind of writing a horror novel that I was calling The Haunt, and it wasn't working very well. Like I was in the midst of revising it, but I wasn't sure if I had really nailed it yet. And when that came in, I started looking at the underlined line of books, and one of them was very similar in premise to The Haunt that I was writing. So I knew, okay, I can't propose that book. I've got to come up with something else. And I need to do it quickly because everybody's probably already putting proposals in her inbox. So in this one particular case, I was extremely strategic, and I looked at their horror thriller line in general, like what do they already have and what are they maybe missing? And I thought they're missing some things with like a supernatural element. Um, and it's a fast-paced line, like the books are really quick and the plots have to be really quick and high stakes. So I started thinking about like, what could I write? And as a Stephen King fan, I was thinking like, what's some things that I liked that really spoke to me, but I could like parlay, like take a little bit of inspiration from a couple of areas and then maybe cobble something together that's my own. And Stephen King's Storm of the Century is an old television miniseries that used to be on. He wrote it specifically for television. It wasn't ever a book. I think they've made the script into a book now, but I always loved that. And that was this idea of sacrificing one of your children. And it was parents choosing. And so I thought, I love this idea of choosing a sacrifice. So what if I had kids who had friends and they had to pick one of their own to sacrifice? And that was kind of the kernel. And I've also had this thing with Final Destination. I love those movies. And of course, I think anybody who's seen the first Final Destination and that plane crash and like how scary that is, I think about that every time I get on a plane. So I thought, interesting, like, wouldn't it be interesting if you had to do something like that, but you were stuck in one place where you couldn't get away and you had to choose and you had a very limited time to do it. And so I took those two things, this idea of a plane, this idea of a sacrifice, and I put them together. And then from there, things grew. But I would have never planned this originally because let me tell you, making an entire book on a plane is very difficult. It doesn't give you a lot of like room for different places for them to go. There's only so many places they can realistically go. So, you know, had I thought about that a little harder, maybe I would have switched where she was or, you know, decided on a slightly different locked room kind of situation. So for me, it's always plot. And I pitched that plot. I think I wrote that proposal in like a week, maybe a week and a half, and they offered on it. And then I wrote the book on proposal. So it was a totally different kind of situation, but it works for me because I am 100% a plotter. I'm going to turn my screen. You can kind of see I have all these boards. There's 4 of them. So you can kind of see there's 3 of them.
Oh,
And those are all of my storyboards. So I am like that whole crime scene detective with the spaghetti string. That is me. I have everything on the board. I like do an extensive like 60-page outline before I ever start writing the book. So
I have deep board envy. This is, you want to be watching us on YouTube this time, esteemed audience. You want to see these boards. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I don't show them up too close because now I'm on another book and like all the secrets are on that board, right?
Well, you heard it here, esteemed audience. Try and magnify the screen as close as you can.